Welcome back, everybody, to the Web3 game development live stream. I am so excited for this episode because we have a true legend with us today. That is Paul Bettner. He's been at the center of multiple business models, types of games, gameplay, platforms. You will know him from Age of Empires. You'll know him from Words with Friends. Now he is the man to go after Web3 gaming because he just loves new stuff, apparently. But we're going to hear his story. We're going to hear all about him. We're going to hear about what he's building at Wildcard Alliance. We're going to hear about Web3. We're going to hear about tokens. We're going to hear about aligned incentives and communities. We're going to hear about the new evolution of competitive play. Maybe we'll even talk a little bit about Beamable and what role we play in the game launch that's underway. But let me tell you what we're doing here. I am Jon Radoff. I am the CEO of a company called Beamable. Beamable builds live services infrastructure. So all that server stuff you need for a game, that's what we do. We help with it all, everything from a blockchain to multiplayer. And I'm accompanied here by Oscar, who's our producer for the live show. He's going to keep us on track. He's going to cue videos, and he's going to pay attention to you, the live community. So there's a reason why we do this as a live show. I used to do YouTube videos, and YouTube's great, and we still transmit on YouTube. But what you can't really do with a pre-recorded video is bring you, the community, in here. And in fact, we're going to talk about community so much today. So a big part of what I love to do is hear the questions from the audience, have those questions come onto the screen. And, you know, we're crazy enough to even bring you in live. So if you've got a camera, Oscar can send you a link to StreamYard and we'll bring you right in. We are fearless on this show. So most of you who show up here, you're interested in Web3 or you're game developers yourself. So a really great opportunity is to learn from Paul about game design, the game industry, his history in the game business, and what you should be doing if you're trying to build a game. If you're crazy enough to try to build a game, like, let's face it, I've built a lot of games. It's partly it's definitely very creative. It's partly a mental illness if you want to be in this business. Like you literally just can't do anything else. That's my experience. I can't speak for Paul. But Paul, let's move the conversation over to you. I gave a little bit of a preview of you, but like tell our audience here what you've done before and where you're going.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a disease. I like to say every shipped game is a miracle. And every game developer is a miracle worker. I'm surrounded by incredible miracle workers that I've been working with now for, 25 years. So I came out here, and by the way, shout out to Jonah if you're listening. Jonah launched his first game on Web3, as far as I know, it's his first game he's ever launched. It's been fun watching him go through that process today and learning so much. And you'd never learn more than just by shipping things. So anyway, I came out here to Dallas, which is where I'm at right now, as a 19-year-old turning 20 kid. There's a longer story about how I was able to secure a job at Ensemble Studios right at the end of when we were shipping Age of Empires 1. The studio was, 15, 16 people or something when I joined it. I fast became close friends with the founder and CEO of that studio, Tony Goodman, who's a dear friend of mine. And now all those friends that I met at that studio, I have kind of grown up with in the industry and I work with today. So I worked on all the Age of Empires games. At some point in there, we sold the company to Microsoft and became Microsoft Game Studios out here in Dallas. Worked on Age 1, Age of Mythology, all the expansion packs, Age 2, Rise of Rome, Age of Kings, and Age 3. And then we worked on Halo Wars. We worked on a giant unannounced Halo massively multiplayer game called Project Titan that's actually out there. Like, it leaked, so people can go look up videos and screenshots of that game, which consumed several years of my life and then never shipped. I just so I think you knew this, John, because we already connected on this a lot, but I was a multiplayer engineer. That was my background. So I was in charge of all the multiplayer stuff on the Age of Empires games. And then worked on, if you guys remember Microsoft Zone, you remember that back in the day, playing multiplayer games on that, and created something called Ensemble Studios Online, which ended up becoming part of Xbox Live and really the multiplayer infrastructure for all that. So during that, I kind of transitioned from engineer to kind of game creative director-ish. I mean, not really. I never shipped any games. directly that I was in charge of, worked on several prototypes. And then I left with my brother and my wife and started one of the very early iPhone game studios. Way back before that seemed like a good idea. Most of my peers at Age of Empires and Ensemble Studios thought it was like a midlife crisis, I think, at that point. Although I was only like in my late 20s, so I don't know. But anyway, I just, when I first saw the iPhone, at that point, having worked on Age of Empires, then Halo Wars, we were kind of on this trajectory of trying to have RTSs and the games we're working on somehow reach new audiences. Halo Wars was all about bringing RTSs to a controller. And Age of Empires, even going back to then, like it was always for me at least, and I think for Tony and some of the folks there, this opportunity to bring games to people who weren't traditionally gamers. That's why Age of Empires is about history. That's why it has this bright and colorful look to it, and it sort of feels, like it's maybe designed not just for your typical hardcore gamer. And back then, these are like the days of Doom and Quake, and every game looked like browns and grays and whatever. This was like, a big deal. And I kind of just fell in love with this idea of making games for more people, like trying to reach new audiences and make our games somehow simultaneously even more hardcore, like even more competitive with higher skill ceiling, and at the same time more casual and more accessible to even more of an audience. I think it's just that we had this saying in Ensemble, easy to learn should take a lifetime to master. And I just like want to take that to the extreme. Like I think that's the most brilliant way to design a game. And so I've just been pursuing that since then. And as you said, that iPhone game studio went on to create a game called Words of Friends that was made Age of Empires look like a drop in the bucket. Just so many players. It was literally a cultural phenomenon, which I've never gone through. And I always dreamed games could be that kind of thing. And then I got to live through it with John Mayer tweeting about the game, and then Alec Baldwin getting thrown off a plane for playing the game, and just all these crazy cultural moments. I was driving in a limo with Kelsey Grammer at one point pitching a Words of Friends game show in Hollywood that didn't take off. But it turns out Kelsey Grammer, all he wants to do is be a game show host, like Alex Trebek. That's like his dream or whatever. So maybe someday he'll get to do it. But anyway, so that was a wild ride. And now here I am working on a game called Wildcard on a new frontier in Web3. Sorry for that long intro, but I'm an old guy.
You deserve the long intro because it's an incredible list of titles that you've been involved with, and targeting the core gaming audience with something like with like Age of Empires, and then going for a mass
all the way to the other
title. There's just not a lot of people who have done that, and you're making yet another leap into Web3 with Wildcard Alliance, which I want to talk about now. We're going to definitely talk about community as part of this, because that's a huge part of what
everything.
That's, I think, what we saw in Web3 is one of the big opportunities. And it's something that, frankly, we at Beamable are living ourselves. We launched this community hub platform as part of a future airdrop that we'd be doing when we do our TGE a few months from now. And I thought it was going to just be for the TGE, but I'm learning that we have this incredible superpower to start to channel our community out to other games that are launching on our platform. And we're actually suddenly in the user acquisition business that I had absolutely no intention of doing. I don't even want to charge for it. I just want our customers to be like super successful, because if you're successful and you got a sustainable game, guess what? That's great for us. Like, I don't need another piece. So we want to keep leveraging that. But the thing I'll say, as the first couple of hundred people come in and are watching live, we are going to have a little giveaway ourselves at Beamable. So we're trying something for the first time. You're going to have to stick around and watch, but later in this episode, I'm going to mention a secret word that if you use that word, you're going to be able to redeem it for something really cool on the community hub. So stay tuned, listen in, and that'll come up later. So Paul, I kind of preempted a little bit, which is sort of the community aspect of Web3, but I'm curious, like, what led you to go from those two totally different sort of domains of game development, and you're like, let's roll the dice a third time and go after something completely new and frankly just really unproven at this point as a technology, as a market? Like, what are your thoughts?
You know me, John. I'm a bit of a storyteller, so sorry for just. I have to tell a story to get us there. So I actually have to go back before Ensemble, and why the hell did this studio, that was adults and professionals and other game developers, people like Bruce Shelley and Tony, who had these amazing careers already. Why did they hire this 19-year-old kid from Florida onto their team? And it's because in high school and then out of high school and into college, I never finished college, but while I was going to college, I started a bulletin board system, or BBS, and probably only like
I wrote a BBS.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I know John knows this, and I think Oscar does, but not a lot of people that I work with these days can still understand what that was. But anyway, it was like the internet before the internet. You dialed up with your computer, and you joined other people, and that BBS, which is called the Playing Fields, grew to be South Florida's largest BBS. So I'm 17, 18 years old and running this wild business, and had 200 modems on my wall in my apartment and like just crazy stuff. And that was my first true exposure to community. And we had thousands of people who would call in, and this was like a big part of their lives, was the community that they found on my BBS, on our BBS, and the friends they made and the relationships and everything else. And I was in there every day and every night. I mean, I literally would roll out of my mattress because I didn't even have a bed, up into my chair, onto my computer. There's 50 people online. Some of them are arguing. Some of them are fighting about some drama's going on or whatever. And that was my day, was just interacting with that community and managing it and trying to keep everybody happy and sane and healthy and safe. And did that during these formative years of my life. And because of that, it turns out some folks at Ensemble had actually utilized the multiplayer stuff that I wrote for that BBS. And that's why they hired me. That's why they were willing to take this shot on this 19-year-old kid, because they're like, wait, you wrote that thing? It was like a BBS plugin called SirIPX that let people play multiplayer games on their modems and emulated an IPX network, a LAN network. It was wild. But anyway, and I think that if I really look at my own career, it's a combination of a couple things that I have always been in love with, and that is probably my deepest, most long-lived love and desire as a game developer. And I think it's probably because I grew up in Florida. I went to Disney World a lot as a kid. I was really lucky. So like all I wanted to be a part of is like an environment where I can build something and then I can hang out together with the folks who are experiencing that thing that I built and see that it's bringing them joy and connection. And like, so like that picture we have in our head of like Walt Disney walking down the boulevard of the park he built and watching like a family holding hands or whatever. I was like, that's all I would want in life, is to be that person in that moment, experiencing that. And hanging out with the communities and spending time with the communities that have enjoyed the games that I build and have been brought together with those games has absolutely replicated that moment for me. So I'm obsessed with that. I'm obsessed with the power of games to connect people and to grow communities. And I always find myself back in that same place every time. and to complete that story, I think really Web3 is the ultimate tool and technology that I've encountered for that yet.
Paul, so there's probably a lot of Web3 game developers that are going to see this. What have you learned about Web3 game development? How is it different? And what should a founder know if they're going to be crazy enough to make any game, of course, but like a Web3 game in particular?
So I skipped over a couple things that we worked on between Age of Empires, Words of Friends, and Wildcard. We also worked on another game called Lucky's Tale that was the game that shipped in the box with the Oculus Rift. So I met Palmer because of John Carmack, who's out here in Dallas, who's at Doom and id, and he connected me with this kid that was duct taping circuit boards together and making this VR headset because he thought it was awesome and thought we should meet. And I ended up getting involved with that Kickstarter. And then that just happened to be after we'd sold Words of Friends, and I was like looking for something to do. And I was like, yeah, we should make a VR game because I'm not allowed to make mobile games. I have a non-compete with Zynga. So I guess let's just make mobile games. Let's make VR games. And so we worked on this game. And the reason I mention that is I have now, and the people that I work with, the specific set of group folks who followed each other from Age of Empires all the way through all this journey we've been on, we have this other disease. Besides being addicted to community and building games that connect people, we also think, and this has just happened now several times, that building games on some frontier, some new technology, is like the most fertile soil. Like it's the place where you can plant new ideas, and if you get it right, it's just gonna blossom into this incredible thing. And we got to experience that with Words of Friends. I mean, actually with Age of Empires, then with Halo Wars, then with Words of Friends, then with Lucky's Tale, because even that game, a VR game, ended up having millions of players and being this hit on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation, everything else. And so when we started working on Wildcard, it was actually with this idea in mind of creating a game that was as much about the community that came together around the game as the players down on the field. So we would say this simply as like, this is the game that's as much fun to watch and attend as it is to play. That's like a shorthand way of saying it's the community that hangs out like here with us right now is as important as if we were watching someone compete down on the field. Like we value those equally. And we wanted the Wildcard to be the game that somehow elevated that experience so that watching wasn't just this like passive, like I'm just a ghost in a channel and I'm not really, and really made it feel like as almost as much fun as joining the game itself. So on the journey of building that, we were seeking all these different ways to do it, these technologies, these, we were working with Twitch for a long time, with Discord, and candidly, just couldn't really get those companies to take that next step or those next steps that we needed to get their platforms to meet us where we wanted to go. And along that journey, I just happened to get introduced to a person who's now a dear friend. He's a developer and designer and partner. It's not his partner. He's a research analyst at Paradigm. And then he introduced us to the partner at Paradigm. And 3 weeks later, we had a term sheet, and it was like, I think Wildcard is a Web3 game now. I don't even know what that means yet. Like I had this inclination, and this is why it worked out and why we ended up signing a deal and getting and sort of going through that transition for Wildcard so quickly, is because what I had experienced of Web3 at that point, I felt like this technology is actually all about community. It's about aligning incentives amongst multiple different users who are wanting to come together and sort of become a new community. And this technology allows them to take that reality, that identity that they are as a community, and like encode it into the technology, like literally write their community identity onto a blockchain and have that technology weave their connections together in code. And I was like, that's so cool. That's what we're looking for with Wildcard. Like maybe this is what we need. And that was 2.5 years ago. And that was just hopes and dreams. And since then, I got to say, I'm really happy and proud that it has turned out to be that. Web3, I think, and you said, you've been discovering this too with Beamable. It's the same thing that we discovered. It's the most magical thing to like have this hope and this idea and this dream, and then to be a couple of years later and watching it come to life and be like, wow, this really is the most powerful technology I've ever encountered for being able to build community and to like weave these different parts of who participates in a game together into one cohesive whole. So that's where we're at now. There's still a lot for us to prove. We haven't even shipped the game yet, but it is shipping this year. But I can say definitively that, despite all the skepticism and people thinking Web3 is for this or that, and it's mercenary and, whatever. Yeah, it's the dream is still very much alive. It hasn't, I don't even think Web3 has actually really gotten its start yet. But it will, and it is, and especially over the next couple of years, I think we'll all look back on it as not this like thing, this divisive thing where some people feel bad about something. It'll just be like, well, this is this great technology. Yeah, it can be used for good and bad, but at the end of the day, it's very powerful and it lets us build wonderful things.
Yeah. So here's one interesting comment from our community. So Remepi-san, you're a little hopeless in the project because you're 80,000 on the leaderboard. We do have a lot of people competing for this. I will say, don't lose hope. Listen for that secret code later in this. That'll help you out. keep competing on it. We're also going to have multiple seasons. So if you came in a little late and you were kind of getting a lay of the land, there's going to be lots of other opportunities, because we have discovered that in our community, there's so much power in the community coming from folks like you. So we're going to keep doing this stuff even after like an initial airdrop. So we see this as being something that we're going to keep doing over the long term, because we can help not only ourselves, but all of the people who are building on top of the platform. And that's going to be an important part of what we do. Let's maybe talk a little bit more about this community aspect, but maybe even the broader subject of like composability.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the focus on blockchain tends to be around like the financialization aspects of it, but really there's so much more that you can do with it, like around community and allowing community ownership of parts of what you're doing. I'm just curious how much you've thought about that, Paul. And
I think about this all the time, because I think it is as you've heard me say, I think it is the most important fundamental sort of superpower of this technology, like the whole point of using this technology. And I think, when we think about Web3, we get this a little backwards, because we tend to think about it as its most defining use case so far, which, like you said, is financialization and financial aspects. But there's a reason for that. It's not that Web3 is built for financial things. It's that financial things require this, or to build, especially like a trustless financial network, you need this thing that didn't exist in the world before blockchains. You need the power of aligning incentives across different people, different communities who have nothing to do with each other and no reason to trust each other. And this technology suddenly allows those people to join together and have shared goals and shared purpose, and they can enforce the rules of that community in code. That's what a blockchain is. That's what a smart contract is. That's what it allows for. And it turns out, first of all, that's an incredibly powerful concept that never existed in the world before blockchain. And I think that's why so many people get excited about it, because you could build everything a blockchain is, but you always had to do that in a way where it was owned and controlled by one or more centralized entities, or at least governed by the powers of law and things like that. And blockchain allows those things to exist in code. It allows that to be the aspects of that alignment to not just be something you have to trust someone else for, but something that you can everybody can take their hands off and be like, hey, look, we set the rules up and the rules are working this way and there's no way to change it because it's all in code and we can trust that. That power is what financial networks need to run securely. It's also, though, to me, it's like one of the most powerful forces I have ever encountered in my journey of developing products, in writing code, in being an engineer, and everything else. Like, this is a fundamental, like, force of nature kind of concept that suddenly code and technology has brought to life. Mm-hmm. And I think that we have just barely begun to scratch the surface of how to apply those concepts. And I talk about it a lot as incentive alignment, because that's what it is. Like, this analogy, when you were talking about the person who's like, I'm 80,000th on the leaderboard. Okay. So the way I always think about that is like, look, we're having a party in this house and somebody else just knocked on the door and was like, can I come in? I'm like, yeah, of course you can come in. That's what we're here for. Like, you want to have fun? Let's have fun. And then they look around, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm like the last person here. And like everybody else is already having fun and whatever. And it's like, but you have to think about it as, yeah, dude, just wait. Next week, when the 400,000 person comes in, you'll be the veteran that's like, oh, come on in. Let me tell you how things are around here. And you're like, yeah, I'm 80,000 on the leaderboard, but like you're 400,000. But like, it's all good. This is a welcoming community. We help each other. We all, and what these technologies do, what blockchain Web3 does, I think fundamentally, is it lets us take those aspects of how a community governs itself, how it manages itself, what those rules are, and encode them and put them into like the most powerful form of like back in those BBS days, we would have like a charter, it was like just this text, this ANSI text that you would see when you logged in that was like, this is how you need to behave. These are the rules. Paul's watching. He'll kick you off if you don't do these things. And a blockchain lets us turn those things into encode them in a way that is like woven into the fabric of this community that we belong to. Is like part of the network we're interacting with. And again, I think we're just barely scratching the surface of that. But to me, it's maybe the most exciting frontier in video games right now. Even though I still feel like a crazy pioneer, but to you and me, like that's old news. Like I had to spend 2 years telling people that mobile and iPhone gaming was going to be a big thing. And all my friends thought I was crazy and I was just making like solitaire and bowling games and ripping off Scrabble and, whatever. And it's like, that's fine. But I just, I see something here that I think is going to, maybe I'm wrong or whatever. And sure. But that's how I feel about this. Same way I felt about mobile. Like this is a force of nature and we're going to figure it out. And when we do it'll look obvious in hindsight.
Okay, Paul. So we've got over 500 live viewers here. I think this is a good point in time to just do a little segue back to Wildcard Alliance and the game you're building and share that with people. So tell everybody about the game, and then let's take a moment to show the trailer here because that's going to tell the story.
Okay, so briefer than before. Wildcard is a real-time strategy action collectible card game, or what our team calls a collectible card action game, a CCAG. It is a game where you play as champions. You have a deck of creatures. You summon those in an arena, and you fight in a sports-like environment alongside your summons to take down the opponent's goalie, score the goal. You're surrounded by live spectators and fans. So if and when we do this someday on our new platform that we built together with Wildcard, which we'll talk about later, it's called Thousands, then the people, those 500 people would actually show up here. They would be in the stands in the arena around us. And just by tuning in to watch, they would actually show up in the game. They would materialize in the game. They can take actions. They can interact with the game. They can receive assets and airdrops. They can actually interact, call smart contract functions, like all sorts of cool stuff they can do as viewers. And so we've been building these two parts of the game at the same time, which is this beloved game. Because I don't think any of this works if we don't end up creating a game that is maybe, if we're lucky, like as good as some of the ones we worked on in our career, like a game you could see yourself playing 10, 20 years from now, and would be one of your favorites in your Steam library. Like that's, our bar is really high. We've worked on great stuff before, and we all have that bar for ourselves. And we're at the beginning of that journey. The game is not out, but it is coming out in early access right now. We're doing alpha playtests every week. We've begun to gather our community over the last couple years. We have, I think, 100,000 people on our Discord, and we have big, giant Twitter communities, everything else. And we have this incredible new Web3 community, which is really what makes up the heart of that, and are here for that journey. So let's take a look at the game. You can kind of see what it looks like. I think it does a better job explaining itself in this video.
Let's do it. Oscar, can we fire that up?
Yes, sir.
By the way, I love that before.
Where are you? Here we go.
Welcome to Wildcard, a third-person 2v2 collectible card action game that seamlessly blends fast-paced arena combat with strategic deck building. You're first going to choose your champion, then use your deck to cast powerful summons to fight alongside you. Each champion has unique abilities that make them who they are. These range from movement mechanics, sidekicks, specials, and ultimates. Each summon has a mana cost. Mana is gained over time, so keep your eye on it and always be using your summons to change the tides on the field. Now that we know what we're playing with, let's talk a little bit more about how to win a match in Wildcard. The first step is to take down the goalie. The goalie has two mechanics. The first being that when you get close, your mana gain is less. The second is each time they are KO'd or spawned, they will clear out opposing summons in the area. Goalies have health or respawn time, and each time they respawn, they'll come back with less health. The second step is to break the shield. Once the goalie is down, use your champion and summons to break the shield. And the third and final step is to score. Hold the interact button to score and end the game. Oh man, I almost forgot about the wildcards. Wildcards are power-ups that spawn in the map. Make sure to fight over them and claim yours to enhance your champions and summons. Well, that's it for me. We'll see you on the field, and may the cards be in your favor.
So I was going to say that's Chris Moffat, the art director. He's got a great voice. We just made that internally ourselves. That kind of like welcome to Wildcard video.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, so you were commenting that your bar is super high. I mean, I think that's one of the lessons, though, right? Like, if you're going to be in Web3, it's not really like Web3 is its own category. It's not like mobile, which it's driven by the hardware, and just everyone's going to be on the same mobile device. So maybe the first games that ever shipped on mobile were not at the level of production values that we would have been familiar with from AAA gaming of the time. Web3 is a little bit different. Like, we're playing on the same platforms, so people have seen great games before. There was 19,000 games on Steam last year. There's no shortage of games. So the bar is going to have to be super high to just succeed. Like,
yeah. And we were talking about this earlier, but, it's, I get it. Like, there's folks in Web3 who have been, here longer than I have, and have been waiting patiently, I would say, like going all the way back to before Axie Infinity, right? We're talking 4 or 5 years now, like ancient history and the speed the world moves today. And I think these folks have been hearing about this dream for a while now, that gaming is what some people believe going to be the thing that finally becomes the true consumer use for Web3 and really brings in the tens, hundreds of millions of people into this technology. And everybody who's been in Web3 knows what that can mean for their bags, knows what that can mean, that's exciting. That's great. That's what we want. And yet they've been waiting for that for a while, 4 years, and starting to feel like, is it ever going to happen? And now for me, who every Age of Empires game was like a 6-year ordeal, I'm like 4 years, man. We still got we got time. Don't worry about it. Yeah, and the way that I really try to connect with people on this, especially if they're like, some people that they feel like they've been grinding in the space forever and like maybe it's never going to happen or whatever, is look, we all agree that great games exist. We agree that we all, as whether we're Web3 gamers, just gamers, doesn't matter. We already have a Steam library and we have our favorite games. And it's not like those are all games that were made 20 years ago. There are new amazing games that come out all the time. So we have established great games can be created and they exist and they come to life. Web3 is a technology that's akin to any other technologies we've already worked with in games forever. You could call it a network technology. You could call it a database technology, whatever. It's just a technology. There's nothing magical or special or like specifically about it that makes it somehow harder to make games or incompatible with making great games. It's just a technology. The reason that we don't yet have a League of Legends or a Counter-Strike or a Minecraft of Web3 is just because it takes a while to make those kind of things happen. And so when I'm trying to give people hope about this, I'm like, look, you can't really talk about whether Web3 gaming is alive or dead when it hasn't happened yet. When we can point to just one game, just one that we are all playing in our Steam library more than our favorite Web2 games, and it happens to be a Web3 game, then let's see what happens. Let's see when there is a game that good that you would all play it. You don't even care if it's a Web3 game. You're just playing it because it's great. And that game happens to have Web3 in it. What then? Because I personally believe that nothing about that game being Web3 is going to stop you from playing it if it's as good as Overwatch or League or whatever is your favorite game is. And we can't have a conversation about Web3 is right or wrong or alive or dead until at least one of those games has arrived. So I know it takes a long time. I'm frustrated too. I get it. I've always been frustrated waiting for one of our games to ship, but don't worry, it's coming. I hope Wildcard is one of them. We've been working super hard as a team that has that high bar to deliver a game that is as good as some of the other games we've worked on, but we're not the only team out there doing that. And your patience will be rewarded because ultimately, eventually those games are showing up. I think they're showing up in the next 12 to 24 months from what I can see. And and it will end the argument forever. We won't be having that conversation of whether Web3 gaming. It'll just be like saying, is games with a database going to work or not? Like, who cares? We're just talking about, is it a great game or not? That's it.
Right,
Sorry
so
for the rant.
it's not that Web3 gaming is dead. It's not even the right question. Web3 gaming is being born. Like that's actually what's happening.
It hasn't been born yet. No, I'm sorry. Go back to the waiting room, but we'll tell you when it's ready.
All right. We're going to come back to Web3 in a little bit, but like, let's talk about a little bit more about the game and like what's going into making this a great game. Like we got a flavor for it just watching. Yeah. You're doing some really hard things, by the way. Like you're not just building a Web3 game. It's also like
we're insane
genre bending at the same time. You're combining collectible card games. You're combining MOBA kind of mechanics. Like, first of all, what's the most fun that you've had building this game, and what's really hard?
Well, I already told you. The most fun is when I get to watch someone enjoy the game for the first time and has no idea what they're coming into. And then they're just like smiling and they're having the time of their life. And they're like, this might be my new favorite game or whatever. Like I live for that moment. I never get tired of that moment. I've been doing this for 30 years. Every single time feels like the first time. I just went to DreamHack here in Dallas. And again, we got to show off Wildcard to a bunch of new creators. We were in the streamer hub. I was in the BYOC area and the free play area. And I just walked in and I was like, I'm home. Like I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been going to QuakeCon since I don't even know. And it still feels as wonderful. So for me, that's the best part. But what we're trying to do with Wildcard is really no different than the journey I've been on with these specific developers going all the way back to age one. We had this saying that guided the development of every one of the games worked on Ensemble, which was it should be easy to learn and it should take a lifetime to master. And, working on different games, like the formula is very different. If you're working on a single player game, I don't think you would say that. It would be a very different thing. Like I'm trying to bring a world to life, or I want people to meet the characters or whatever it is. But working on competitive games like this that are ideally aiming to be something that can be played forever, like decades into the future, people are still discovering new strategies. And I think Age of Empires had its biggest year last year in terms of number of players, right? So it's still in that place. Building a game like that is just this relentless process of trying to make the game more accessible while at the same time making it more hardcore. And so what I mean by more accessible is it should be something that anyone can jump in and without even someone explaining to them, they're just clicking around or they're pressing buttons and there's stuff happening and it's fun and they get it and it's appealing. And like that moment in Age of Empires for me was the first time a hunter throws a spear and he catches a deer and he's carrying the giant hunk of meat back. And I'm like, I was hooked from that moment on. I was like, oh my gosh, these little guys, I'm making them do stuff. Like, it's great. And so that's that like easy to learn. Like anyone who could use a mouse and could use Windows could play Age of Empires. And for Wildcard, we're trying to push that even further, like we did with Halo Wars, where even if you don't know how to use a computer, mouse and keyboard, you don't have a gaming PC, even if you just pick up a controller, you can have a good time. And we can measure this by putting like an 8-year-old in front of the game. And if they think it's the best thing ever, then yeah, we're kind of hitting that goal. And at the same time, the hardest core players, the ones who are playing professionally or have done that before or whatever, and like for them, they require the game to have a certain skill ceiling, basically an unlimited skill ceiling, so that they can continue to get better, so that there's not really a limit to that competitive landscape and how deep and involved it can get. And so for Wildcard, from the beginning, that has been the same mantra that's been guiding us. Is like, basically, can we take this thing we've done? Can we take the joy and the strategy of a real-time strategy game? And like you guys saw in that video, controlling units and where do I spawn my units and how do they move across the field and how do I balance this? And can we combine that with the accessibility of an action game? I saw in one of the comments on the thread, like it looks kind of like a child of League of Legends and Rocket League and hero shooters. And I'm like, oh, I love hearing that. You missed like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, but that's because that video doesn't show that a lot, but it's also mixes in those elements. But it has that immediate pick up and play accessibility, but the depth of the collectability of building decks, the meta, and then the like skill the real-time skill of controlling your champion down on the field. It's if I had a time machine, I would go back in time and punch myself in the face for trying to weave 3 totally disparate genres together: action, strategy, and collectible game genre. But I've gone through all that pain. We have, and here we are 6-7 years later, and it finally works and it's fun. And now we get to enjoy the fact that this isn't just a clone. This isn't just, another extraction shooter or another whatever. Like, we have genuinely made something new that doesn't feel quite like anything else out there. There are other great games that have similar elements, something like Smite, but this is, I think, the first game that is an arena collectible battle action strategy game. And that's why we made it, because when we first started working on it, we imagined a game like this could exist, and we couldn't find it. We're like, we basically wanted to play a game where I was summoning cards in an arena and fighting alongside, kind of like a real-time version of Clash Royale. And we just couldn't find that game. So we're like, you know what, let's make it. We really wish that game existed. And now we get to play that, and it's our own game, and it's amazing.
Is that challenging to think about how you merge together these genres? Because I'm thinking about the mindset. Like, I was a huge
That's why I said I would punch myself in the face.
Right. So I was a huge Magic the Gathering player and loved it. Haven't really kept up with the current meta anymore, but played Hearthstone. Like, I get it. Love that genre. Played RTS games, including Age. I think Age was the first for sure of that I played. Have played MOBAs, never really got into League personally, but I get why people love it and why it's so repeatable with the character collecting and whatnot. But like, when you start putting these elements together, like, is that challenging to think about how you get that Hearthstone player to, I don't know, not get frustrated that he has to do some action sequence to execute in the game? And by the same token, does that action player want to think about deck building?
Yeah, it is the most challenging thing. That's what I was trying to get across, is like, it's, you said it earlier, it's a disease, right? I don't know. We do hard things because we do hard things. But I think that it has been the hardest part of this journey. During Age of Empires, we would call it finding the fun. But clearly after Age 1, we sort of had the core formula, and you would think, well, finding the fun of Age 2 would have been easy, but it was still brutally difficult. Every single Age game, it felt like we forgot how to make RTSs and we had to relearn it again. But every game I've ever worked on has this element of like discovery and these dark moments where you feel like you're wandering in the woods and you're I don't even know how to make a game. What am I doing? Like, I don't deserve to do this job. And when we're in those moments, what we're doing is we're like channeling the joy that we know exists, that we know we're searching for. We haven't seen it yet. We're like in the dark with a flashlight, but we know what it looks like when we find it because we can remember. We're like, wait, hold on. The joy I get from playing Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, what does that feel like? And then we'll like channel those moments like, oh, well, it's so great when you like open a pack and there's a new card, and that new card blossoms immediately into opportunities to create new things in your head. You're like, oh my gosh, this card is perfect. If I combine it with this other card, I could create this little mini engine factory thing. And I can't wait to try that in the next game. Okay, hold on. I got to go rebuild my deck, and then we got to play again so I can do this. And that's super unique to CCGs. Like that type of joy I'm describing doesn't exist in other types of genres. Mm-hmm. Similarly, I could tell you stories about those same feelings in an RTS and how it feels to be like, oh, I just put those units and I set this other thing up, and then they combined together into this wave that pushed the enemy back. It was so satisfying. And of course, for action games, I was in the right place at the right time. I took the actions at exactly the right moments, and I dominated my opponent. So for us, we don't really start with like, how do we mix these genres? Instead, we're like, look, can we just identify the set of feelings? And in the case of Wildcard, it was a lot. It was a long list. But we never lost sight of those things. And we would sort of be unsatisfied with ourselves if one of them was dominating the other. So like we had all these moments early on in Wildcard where the game would just feel like you're playing in CCG, and you would kind of ignore the fact. And we knew this because people would just like stop moving. They would like, their champion would stop, and we'd be like, what are you doing? They're like, well, I'm looking through my cards. And we're like, okay, this isn't working. Like, you're supposed to be running around while you do that. And in those cases, it was like, oh, there's too many cards or there's too many choices or whatever. And then sometimes we go in the other direction and they would just be punching things nonstop and they would just be ignoring their cards, barely even summoning things. And we'd be like, okay, well, I'm glad you're having fun with the action part of this game, but this isn't working because we're trying to make this blend. And the answer to your question, John, as you know, is it just takes time. Like you hold those things that they're up on the wall, they're in our Slack, they're in our Discord, they're like these things that we know we want our players to feel. That's how we define the word vision, by the way, internally. Vision is just how we want someone to feel when they experience the product. So when we define what those feelings are, then it's just relentless playtest driven development, which is all any of the Age of Empires games were. They were like, we know the game sucks, but let's go back in the playtest area and let's play it again because the designers tried to make it suck a little bit less today, and let's give them our feedback or whatever. And you just go through that for years. And you would think, again, coming off like Age 1 to Age 2, you would think, oh, well, Age 2 must have been fun right out of the gate. No, there were so many moments where I would get done, and this wasn't me, everybody's doing this. We'd get done playing Age of Empires, and we or done working on Age of Empires 2 during the day, and then go back and play Age 1 at night, because that was how we wanted to relax. And I remember us looking at each other being like, we can't ship this yet. If we're all going and playing Age 1 instead of the game we're working on, clearly we can't ship the sequel, because it's like, come on. And that was, by the way, like 1 year when we were supposed to ship, and then we took another year to ship the game because we told Microsoft just not good enough yet. But anyway, every game is like that. There's not a magic bullet. There's just, here's what we want the game to be. This is the feelings that we imagine it can create. Now let's just go bang our heads against the wall and play test relentlessly. At least now we get to do it with our community. And that, I think, does help us get there faster.
Yeah, that's some important words of wisdom for game developers as well. I wonder how many Web3 game developers in particular are out there building a game, but not really playing the game. You got to actually play the game
every day.
It's actually, I mean, this is not limited to Web3 in any way. I don't want to make it sound like that's a Web3 problem. Like, I've met a lot of game teams who they basically don't really like the genre of the game that they're building, and they're not playing the game either. And why are they there? I guess because it was a game industry job, and a lot of people will work on anything if they get to say that they're a game developer, and sort of has this weird vicious cycle associated with it in a lot of teams.
Even the best jobs, unfortunately, can have people in them that are just doing it because it's a job,
So we're getting super close to the magic word, the word that we're going to release that's going to allow you to participate in today's reward. And we're doing this for the very first time. I promise I will say it before the end of the episode, but I will speed up when I say it. If someone
Thankfully, it's not a word that I can like accidentally say. It's like accidentally in a sentence. I don't think I'm gonna accidentally.
We're gonna say it. We're gonna put it on the screen too. There will be no about the word, but I'll speed it up a little bit. If someone asks Paul a really great question about what he's working on or anything he's worked on in the past, because we've got 800 plus people here. You're all live. I know a lot of you are lining up for the reward today, but ask a question, because you've got a true legend of game development here across multiple genres. And actually, I was wrong when I opened up the intro. I treated it like there were two big buckets. I missed out the whole VR bucket that sat in there as well. And there's probably that's more than three even.
That's, when we were first talking to Paradigm, when they were, the thing, I got to throw some love to Paradigm here for a second, who they invested $46 million, well, 40 million of the 46, the other 6 was Griffin and some of our other existing investors. But they came in with this giant check and this huge belief. And they did that literally because they played the game and they loved it. There was no other reason. Like they saw something very special in the game, which we also thought was special. And they were able to like evaluate it from the quality of the game's perspective. And that's just a great thing. And I it's in this space, it's sort of easy to be skeptical because Web3 is still waiting to find those kind of mass market consumer things. And so people can just kind of run to the negative. And but everyone that I meet in this community and that we've brought around us is here for the reasons we are. And And that's what building a community is about, right? I bet that the people who aren't there for those reasons, they've already left. They're like, yeah, this guy, he's too happy. I don't want to be a part of this community or whatever. But it has this power to bring together people, to align their interests and their incentives, and to get them as excited about building this as we are. And it's use this word earlier, John. It's a superpower. That's not the word, but it is a superpower to harness that. Man, I wish I had back in Age of Empires days. Like, if we wanted to play test a game, I could get 10 people together from the studio by picking up the conference call thing and being like, "Oh, guys, it's time for a play test. Let's all go." And here we can snap our fingers and have 800 people ready to join us with whatever we're doing. And like that alone is an example of that superpower. And when studios, like you're saying, when if they're willing to embrace that, it is, in my opinion, how all games will be made in the future. They will all be made with this community first. Get your community involved early. Get them playtesting with you on a constant basis, because it's just that source of feedback. Like we used to say, there's no amount of money that can make that go faster. We used to say that to Microsoft when they're like, "Can you please ship this game? Like you need to ship it. We've been working on it for 4 years. We can't do another year or whatever." It's like that joke about you can't make a baby in 1 month with 9 women. Same idea. You really can't force that find the fun process with money. Like we can't just somehow hire more engineers and make the game more fun, more faster. It doesn't work that way. But what does happen is the earlier and more frequently we can engage and involve the community in the process of making the game better and asking them, what do you hate? What do you love about it? How can we do that? Actually is the only thing I've ever found in my career that can get us to that place of wild success sooner than later. And that's all we're doing all day right now. It's just, it's like this, interacting with folks, meeting them, having them go, that game looks cool. I didn't even hear about this yet. I'm going to go join that Discord. I'm going to go wishlist that game on Steam. And by the way, if you do, our Steam page is up. Please go wishlist, because it gets you access to the alpha test right now. And you will play the game before anyone else. You will be there in our Discord. You'll be giving us feedback every week. Our developers and our designers are playing with the community. And some of those folks have become heroes of the game now. And I will tell you guys that some of the best developers I ever worked with started as just folks I met in the community. And then they were so good at the game that we hired them. And then they ended up being the lead designers on the game. Like, that's just how it happens. Like, especially when people find the game and they're like, this is the game I've been waiting for.
Okay, so we got a bunch of people here. They're clamoring for the code. What do you think, Paul? Should we give them the code, Oscar?
I think you've teased long enough. You got to know when to deliver the goods. I think it's time.
All right. So the code, for all of you who have been waiting for the code, is the word fusion. Fusion. That is the magic word. And Oscar, you're going to get that on the screen too. I know not everyone here reads or writes English as a first language. So, yep, there we go. Fusion. Fusion is the word. You got 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes to go. And those of you who are watching this in replay, I'm sorry. This is why you got to watch live. The cool shit on this show happens live, whether it's things like that.
That is what we most believe in. We didn't get a chance to talk about it that much, but I know you guys are building on these ideas, and so are we. We have because of the vision of Wildcard, bringing together not just the players but the community, and our frustration with trying to get other platforms to get to sort of be what we needed. We ended up building it ourselves. It's a brand new network called Thousands. It's built on top of technologies from Beamable as well as our game. So like you got to know, like John and everything at Beamable is like the foundation for everything we're building, and it lets us not have to build that stuff that I have built 10 times in my career in the past, because I get to work with John and this amazing team, and they build all those things, so I don't have to worry about it, and we can just focus on the game and on the things that we build on top of it. But that
you not want to build this stuff yourself.
No, it's not. I am so grateful for the folks who do want to build these things so that I don't have to. Because they're key technologies that every game needs, every product needs. Anyway, I just had to say at the end here that how grateful I am that you guys are doing such a good job of that, and that we get to be your partners. Hopefully we make you look good with our use of all the technologies you're building. But I love that that we sort of have reached the same conclusion. Like we were talking about before the show, the thing that I have discovered from Web3 that is just this beloved, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best way to build community that we've ever encountered as a technology. And you've kind of stumbled into the same thing, just like I stumbled into it. I thought in the beginning, like Web3, maybe it's about coins, maybe it's about smart contracts, I don't know. But it's actually about the power of community, about building community and the tools to do that. And I love that you guys are building those things too.
Paul, what have you learned about your community? You've had for a while, actually, a pretty substantial community. Like I go into your Discord, there's a bazillion people in there. Are they crypto native people? Are they gamers? Like what is
both?
that?
Both. There's never an either or, but yes, they're very crypto native, and they call themselves Web3 gamers to underline the Web3 part. Because I mean, come on, we're all gamers at this point. Everybody that is at a certain age loves and plays games. Like you don't have to think about that anymore. But
3 or 4 billion people in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone under a certain age, basically, like might as well just. It's like I used to make this joke, like you don't walk around going, "Are you a movie goer?" Like what? Everybody just watches movies. Why you don't ask that question? We're finally getting to the point where asking someone whether they're a gamer or not is going to be kind of silly. But we're still not there. There's plenty of people that are alive that don't play games, but they're all old people, and everybody young does. And to answer your question, what I've learned is when folks self-identify as Web3 gamer, they're actually talking about the Web3 part. They're saying the way I define fun is the things that Web3 brings to games that are unique, which is the ability to get involved as a community, to participate in contributing value and actually like sharing in that value that we're all building together. That's unique, right? If you're just in games and you're not putting on the Web3 gamer hat, that's not a conversation you would normally have like in a Discord. You wouldn't be talking about, hey, how can we share in the rewards of this game that we're creating together? But that's very important to Web3 gamers. And that's awesome. Like, that's great. Like there are so many parts of games that have been already about sharing the rewards. So for instance, being a pro gamer, being a streamer, being like, there's all these ways in which play to earn existed far before Web3, right? So this isn't like some foreign or bad thing. This is fine. This is another group of gamers that have a way they define fun. So for me, I've learned, oh, these folks are those type of gamers. Okay, let's build for them. And that's what we're trying to do.
So Oscar read my mind, which is sort of the call to action here so that you can be put on part of this community. And what I heard you say earlier was go wishlist on Steam. Like that's what you need people do. That's what every game developer needs. Everybody who's watching this who's a gamer, if the game is on Steam,
it's all about the wish list. Yeah, I wish Web3 people understood that more. Like that's one of the best ways you can help a product or project. If they have a Steam page, go just jam into those wish lists. Show the Steam algorithm that this is a game you're excited about, because that grows the value of that game more than anything you can do in this phase. So,
yeah. What else should they know? What are the places they can?
Well, just
go? Where should they follow?
After you wish list, get on the Discord, join the playtest on a weekly basis, or join the live streams we're doing on Thousands. Just by connecting a wallet and tuning in to watch, you will actually become part of the game. You'll be eligible to receive airdrops just by being there. People are getting airdropped the Wildcard token on a constant basis. We run 3 of these events a week, and just by showing up in the stands of the arena and cheering their support, they get airdrops of the Wildcard token right now. It's the coolest thing.
That is so cool. Paul, we've burned through an hour here, so thank you so much for your time. I know that you got important things to do, like build a game that everybody's waiting for, and you took out an hour to talk to us about what you're doing.
My pleasure.
I'm really grateful. And by the way, grateful for all of you who showed up and spent an hour with us.
That's what I was going to say. Those are the real superstars. Everybody who joins us and is willing and interested in becoming part of these communities.
Absolutely. And we just passed 1,000. So we got over 1,000 people watching live who are really curious about the game and what you're doing with Beamable, but I think more importantly, interested in you, Paul, and your background and what you've learned about game development.
Well, thank you so much for introducing me to your community. I'd love to meet you in our community. Any of you who are listening, I just want you to know too that Wildcard is intentionally and specifically a global game. We have many more players outside the US that don't speak English as we do people in the US. And I love that we always envisioned Wildcard as being a international sensation, our hope and dream. So even if you can barely understand what I'm saying, don't worry. I will translate what I'm saying when we meet on the Discord. So I'll speak in your language, and please join us.
Yeah. And for that matter, join us weekly on this program at noon Eastern time. That's when we meet with really talented, very experienced game developers like Paul, who are entering Web3. I also do talks with people who are not Web3. I do talks with people who are in artificial intelligence. I do another one on decentralized tech. I'm crazy enough to want to do this 4 days out of the week, which is a lot in my schedule, but it's really fun conversations and I learn so much and I hope that I get to share some of that learning with you. So grateful for the 1,000+ of you who've decided to spend an hour with us. We couldn't do this without you. It would be a very lonely conversation between me and Paul if we did. And Paul would probably tell me that he has more important things to do. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I wanted to say the same thing too. First of all, Jon, thank you for having me. Oscar, thank you for helping us produce this. And everyone who showed up, thank you so much for being here.
Perfect end to the program. Until next time, everybody, it's been a blast.